Welcome to another episode of Purchase to Profits. I'm Seth Ferguson. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our daily interviews with successful real estate investors. Our guest today has over 14 years of real estate experience and owns over 1,000 rental units across 5 states. She's also a #1 best-selling author and a podcast host. Monick Halm is the founder of Real Estate Investor Goddesses. Monick, welcome to Purchase to Profits. It's great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to speaking with you. So to kick things off, tell us about your real estate goals right now.
My real estate goals. So my big goal right now, it's like my big, hairy, audacious goal is actually to help 1 million women create financial freedom through real estate. So that's my big goal. It's like I got to the point where I created financial freedom, and as I've been running around this real estate world, I was looking around and there weren't that many women in the game. So often I'm in these rooms or conferences or trainings, and I might, definitely less than 10% of most rooms are women. And so my big, hairy, audacious goal is to bring a lot more women into this game and to help 1 million women create financial freedom.
That's awesome. And it's so true because you just look through the guest list for my show. I would say, yeah, you're pretty much bang on, right? 85 to 90% dudes.
Yeah. And there's no good reason for that, right? It's just because it's a industry that can work for men or women. Mm-hmm. It provides time freedom. It's particularly great, I think, for women and moms. And so that's why I'm trying to talk to more women and get them into this game.
Yeah. And how did you come up with 1 million? Is that just because 1 million is a really big number and you said, let's go for it?
Yes. So this mission came to me really as a divine download, and it was like, it came to me. So that's work.
Yeah. And for your real estate, you mentioned you've already hit that financial freedom level. So do you have anything that you want to do outside of the education component, maybe with your own portfolio? Yeah.
So one of the big things that I'm working on right now is creating a Reg A Plus fund. So it's a fund that's geared towards female investors, and the fund would be investing in majority women-run real estate projects. So that fund, I see that as my easiest way to get to that million. It'll allow investors, non-accredited and accredited, to come in at smaller amounts and get in the game and get going. So that's like my next big project.
And is this the first fund you've ever done?
It'll be my second.
Second, okay.
I did a fund before, but it was a accredited only fund for some single family properties in Jackson, Mississippi.
Oh, that's great. So what changes did you have to make about how you thought about real estate to go from starting investing and then all the way to starting to build these funds, because it's a totally different animal? What changes went on inside your head?
Oh my gosh, so many different paradigm shifts. It's all been a series of paradigm shifts that have gotten me here. When I grew up not knowing anything about real estate, I have great parents who always told me I could be anything I wanted to be, but in parentheses was, as long as that's a doctor, lawyer, professor, or engineer, because that's all that was success growing up, right? But it was trading your time for money. So when I fell into real estate because I went to go buy a house for me to live in, which was the only thing I'd ever learned, buy your house and that's it. And it was LA 2005, towards the top of the last bubble, and I couldn't afford anything. Even though I was working as an attorney, I had a pretty good salary, but the average house was like $700,000, $800,000. It wasn't that cheap. So I ended up partnering with somebody, with a friend of mine, and we were going to get a duplex and each of us live on one side. We ended up finding a property where the bottom part was much nicer than the other side. And so we each decided to take one room in the bigger unit, rent out the other one. We rented out a converted garage in the back. We rented out our basement, and I started house hacking. before I knew that was a thing. And so that was my first like revelation, like, oh, wow, you could have people paying your mortgage and expenses. That's cool. And then I just started slowly getting into real estate. And the next paradigm shift was, let's see, fast forward about 10 years later. And at this point, I've had a few duplexes and a single family rental. And we've been flipping for a while. And flipping was becoming harder and harder. And I was trying to get something I could buy and hold, but nothing made any sense in LA. And then I ended up meeting Robert Helms, who's of the Real Estate Guys Radio, through a mutual friend. And I had this conversation with Robert that gave me two big paradigm shifts that totally changed everything. So I was telling him about like how I was trying to find a fourplex in LA and I couldn't find anything that cash flowed. And he said, I always say, live where you want to live, invest where the numbers make sense. And I went, oh, like that makes sense. But I never thought about investing outside of where you live. So that was the second big paradigm shift, right? That you can invest anywhere that numbers make sense. So, because I always thought you had to drive to your property and touch it. And the next thing he said was, and you can buy this fourplex by yourselves, but you limit your own capital and credit. He said, alternatively, you could bring groups of investors together and buy a 100 or 200 unit apartment building. And that totally blew my mind, because I thought you need a Donald Trump's bank account to do that. I didn't realize that was like a thing that real people could do. So it got me thinking a lot bigger, and it got me partnering with others. So until then, it was always my own capital credit or with my husband, the two of us together. So then from there, we were really able to exponentially jump.
And once you made the decision to go bigger with the larger units, how long did it take you from saying, yes, this is what I want to do, to doing your first deal?
In syndication?
Yeah.
Let's see. So that conversation I had with Robert Helms was in October of 2015. And then I went home, told my husband, we're doing this thing. It's so cool. Right? And so we went and bought tickets, I think that night, for the Secrets of Successful Syndication seminar, which was in January of 2016. So in January of 2016, I guess we officially got started. And then we did our first syndication. We closed our first deal in June of 2016.
Nice. That's great. Because I think there's so many people, like you were describing, where they're doing those duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, and it's their own mind that's holding them back, because they're not seeing what's out there beyond their horizon, right?
Yeah. I mean, every time I learn something new and I get more education, I realize the opportunities that are out there. So oftentimes you can't even see it, because you just don't even know that exists. So I didn't realize that was a thing. I didn't realize I could get an apartment building. But until that point, a fourplex was the biggest thing I could imagine.
Yeah.
And so it really helped having people to show me the way that, oh, there's this possibility. So that's what's great about shows like yours, where people can learn and go, oh, wow, that's a thing. I could do that. and that helps open up doors.
Yeah, and now you've gone from syndicating to operating a fund, which is even the next level up. So you've gone from, all the way from, humble beginnings all the way up to like the pinnacle of capital.
Yeah, I guess that's one way to think about it. It always just feels like the next logical step,
Oh, for sure. So as you've built your business up, have you developed any routines or rituals that helps keep you focused?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the big things that I do, so I have a morning ritual. I do the miracle morning, the Hal Elrod miracle morning. So I will I will meditate, and I do some journaling. I always ask myself the one thing from Gary Keller, like what's the one thing, and in so doing will make everything else easier or necessary. And that has really been transformative. I do affirmations. I do some reading, and then I exercise. So that's my morning. And I try to not touch my phone, look at email, look at anything until that's complete. And usually until I get my daughter to school, I come home, and then I can start the day with other people's, emails and things. But
yeah,
that's my ritual.
And right now, where you're at now, would you say most of your time is spent raising capital for your funds? Is that where you're devoting most of your time?
Yeah, mostly I have an education business, so I'm teaching as well, but I guess probably the majority of my time is spent fundraising for syndications or for the funds.
Yeah. And how important, have you brought any team members on to help you as your business grows? And if you have, what effect did they have on your growth?
Yeah, that's a good question. And something that I'm working a lot on right now is building out the team. So we have, we've brought on bookkeepers, we've brought on some assistants to help with admin. I have some marketing people that are helping me. Not everyone is my employee, so some are contractors, but and I've partnered with people in my funds, so not everything is so I have different partners in actually all of my deals, because we're more on the fundraising side, and then we have others that are on the operation side. But that's mostly the team.
Yeah. And you mentioned partners with capital raising and else, other things. How do you approach potential partners, and how do you vet them to make sure it's a good relationship?
Yeah, great question. So one of the things that I've learned from a mentor, Beth Clifford, who's a brilliant developer and businesswoman. So she's taught me to look for the 3 C's. So the first is character. So the first thing I look at is, what is somebody's character? So how do they show up? Are they of integrity? Do they do what they're going to say? Do they say what they're going to do and do that? And how do they treat others? And I look at just how they're showing up, as well as I'll do my due diligence on them online, see what other people have said about working with them. And then I talk to others who have worked with them as well to get a sense of character. And then the next C is commitment. So I have part of my mission is to invest in such a way that we leave a property and a community better than we found it. So whoever I work with, they need to share that commitment. It's not about being a slumlord, getting every dollar out of the deal. It's really, having that commitment to improve a community. It matters to me a lot as well. I have a commitment to look for relationships for life. So I want to really be long-term in my relationships. And it's not just about just doing this deal and very transactional. It's really very long-term. So I look for people who have that same commitment too. And then commitment in a very practical sense, that they need to actually have the time and ability, and they're fully committed to the project we have. So it's not, and this is not just partners, but say you have a contractor and you need them to be at your job site, and then they have other jobs so they're not like really committed to doing your work when it needs to be done. So all of that's commitment. And then the last C is capacity. So their ability to do the job that needs to be done. And I look for the best possible people. I've learned, work with the best. They won't cost you money. They'll make you money. And so I try to work with people who are at outstanding levels in whatever it is that they're doing. So that's what I look for and how I vet people.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. 3 C's. I might steal that.
You should.
Yeah.
I stole it, so go ahead.
Yeah.
Be my guest to steal it. Next.
Yeah. So let's talk about a deal that stands out. So a keystone deal that made a big impact on you. Is there one that comes to mind?
Yeah. So I'll share, when we were talking at the beginning, you said, with the Keystone deals, it could be a good deal, it could be a bad deal. So I'll tell about a bad deal.
All right.
So
These are the juicy ones.
this is bad. But it had a happy ending, knock on wood. But it was actually one of our first apartment buildings that we syndicated and building in Albuquerque. And we were looking at this area that had been rough and looked to be really up and coming and gentrifying, and we're like, okay, maybe this was a C class, and they had like a new Planet Fitness right next door and new Starbucks and all that stuff. So we're like, okay, yeah, we're getting in on the ground floor. Well, it turns out we were not. It was not quite the ground. It was like still the basement, still quite D class. And so, we had to deal with drive-by shootings and arson and guns getting pulled on our property manager, and tons of car like jackings. And one of my favorite stories was it was the day after Valentine's Day, and our property manager walked by and saw that one of the units had been broken into. There had been rose petals all over the floor, and then hypodermic needles. So I guess kids had come in for a Valentine's Day, whatever, tryst. So it was nonstop. And we were trying to make it beautiful, but it was definitely trying to put lipstick on a pig. And, it was hard to keep the occupancy up, hard to make the numbers work. And we're just breaking even, but our CapEx was going down and down, and it was getting really scary. And we just, I guess it's through, again, divine intervention, a miracle, that we were approached by our property managers who said, we have another owner who has a 1031 exchange, and would you be willing to sell your building? I'm like, maybe for the right price. We had investors. We couldn't leave them in a lurch. And so we set a price, and which was a crazy price for the property. It was a 4 cap in
Albuquerque.
In Albuquerque. And we got it. So we got out of that deal. With some money and a profit for our investors. And so that was a juicy deal, but also we learned a lot. We learned so much about the importance of a good team, and how hard it can be when things aren't right, and especially the importance of property management when you are in that kind of environment. And we also learned that we would rather be on the fundraising side than on the operations side, because that was stressful. And so all of that taught us many lessons, and but mostly not to ever buy anywhere near D class.
Yeah. Well, you said, there was a Starbucks going in. Whenever you see a Starbucks, Whole Foods, those kinds of places popping up, that's usually a good sign.
Usually that's a great sign, right? That is Starbucks at a new gym. It's like, okay, it was near a medical center. We thought, all right, there's things that can be done. There was also another building a block away that had, in theory, they'd really amped it up, and they had a model for what we thought was possible. And I think, though, that it was partly an issue of not having the right property management, because you need a very strong property management for that type of market, that type of area. And we just were having a hard time finding it. So it was a bunch of things that came together to make that one just a bear. But like I said, we got out through a miracle.
You gotta love those 1031 buyers.
I know. Yeah. I live in California, but it's like, oh, it's those Californians.
Yeah.
That just get they see the sticker price and get really excited. Regardless.
Well, so you're doing your due diligence. Going into this deal, did you feel you had to do a pretty big purge of the tenant profile, or is that something you hadn't really picked up on because it was one of your first deals?
We did think that we were going to be getting like really changing out the tenant base, because we were looking at our comp, and our comp had, it was nice. So we were expecting to purge. And it was just, but it was like that, like getting the right people. And then a lot of people just did not want to be in that neighborhood, right? It's still, despite the Starbucks and the Planet Fitness.
Well, I'll just go pick up a cappuccino. I'll go get a cappuccino before I do my drive-by.
Exactly, pretty much.
Yeah.
So it just didn't have the best reputation. So we had a reputational challenge in that area. So there were bright spots, but it was just really hard to make it work there.
Yeah. So what advice would you give somebody? Because, no matter, everybody's going to pick up a dud at some point. What advice would you give to somebody who's maybe already closed on a deal, they're having issues with it? What would you tell them in order to get through those tough bits?
Yeah. Well, if they have a really strong property management, a really strong team, like a really, really strong team might be able to pull that out. But otherwise, sometimes it's good to just cut your losses and get out, and go someplace where it'll be a much easier haul. So we had actually decided before this 1031 buyer showed up that that's what we were going to do. And we sort of prepared our tenants, just cut it at this point. You may not get all of your money back, but we're going to get you most of it back. And so we were, everyone was getting prepared for that. And they've, most people would probably rather have, 90% of their money that they can go and use in someplace else than to keep it in a deal that's just not working and it's going downhill.
Yeah.
So that's what we had decided. But like I said, we lucked out.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm so glad you lucked out.
I was flying to Albuquerque to go look at the property and see, and we had two properties. So both of them, this one was the worst one, but both of them were really challenging. And so we were going to go and to go see all the units and what can we do and how can we we're trying to figure out a plan. And as I was flying, I was praying. It's I could use a miracle just about now. And then that night we were told about this buyer. And I was like, thank you, God. There's my miracle. Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad you brought up that story. That's a good story.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our listeners, you try prayer. That works too.
When all else fails.
When all else fails, prayer. It worked for me. So there you go. Yeah.
I'll add that one to the toolbox.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how has getting into real estate changed your life so far?
Oh my gosh, in so many ways. I was an attorney before, and I hated law so much. I was so miserable as a lawyer, and real estate has given me freedom. And it's so, I guess, and I appreciate how miserable I was because now I can appreciate how happy I am. Because it's the contrast. And it's been amazing. I work with my husband, and that's great. That's wonderful to be able to work together, and it's wonderful to be able to help other people, our investors, my students. I have that freedom. We travel a lot. I just love it in every way. It's made my life better.
Oh, that's great. Well, we got to get you up to your 1 million people goal. So
yes.
So if somebody's out there listening or watching right now, where can they find you if they want to invest or learn more about your programs?
They should go to reigoddesses.com. And there you can find out about my programs, our investor club, and join our community.
That's great. And we need to get you up to 1 million. So how many more people do you need to join you?
Oh my goodness. We're still quite a ways away, but we're getting into the hundreds. But I figure, and it's not all going to be me. So what I keep telling, I call it my goddesses, the goddesses in my program, that, you get there, you're going to go and you're going to bring somebody along with you. So our mantra is, I'm here to be financially free and to bring my sisters along with me. So as we get there, then we pull a hand back and bring somebody else. So it's not just going to be me alone, but together we can do it.
Yeah, you're the captain of the ship.
I guess so. I'm just I'm along for the ride too, it feels like half the time, but I'm just trying to get us there however it works out.
That's awesome. So Monick, I just want to say thanks so much for taking the time today and sharing your success with us.
Thank you for having me. It was so fun.
It was my pleasure. And to you, our viewers, I wish you well on your journey from purchase to profits. See you next time.